the resurrection of ISIS. No joke. There has been a resurrection, a return of the Islamic State in Afghanistan.
We wrote a book when ISIS first became prevalent called Rise of ISIS. It was #1 New York Times bestseller. Now you've got in Afghanistan, you have ISIS, you have the Taliban, and then you have these splinter groups from them.
3 days ago, President Biden, in his address to the nation, said this about the threat of terror groups inside Afghanistan.
Look, let's put this thing in perspective here. What interest do we have in Afghanistan at this point with al-Qaeda gone? We went to Afghanistan for the express purpose of getting rid of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, as well as getting Osama bin Laden. And we did.
On the same day, I think it may have been like an hour later, it wasn't even that much later, Admiral Kirby from the State Department, the spokesperson, said this about al-Qaeda.
We know that al-Qaeda is a presence as well as ISIS in Afghanistan, and we've talked about that.
What is the president doing?
And who's briefing who?
Who is briefing him? Who is telling him to give a speech to the nation, to the entire country, and say that ISIS is gone, they're not a threat, and then 3 days later have to deal with an acute and present is exactly what the words are. Listen to them.
How real is this ISIS threat?
The threat is real, it is acute, it is persistent, and it is something that we are focused on with every tool in our arsenal.
Their ultimate goal is to get attacks restarted. I mean, is this what we're going to be waking up to again? New attacks in America by radical Islam? Think about how long it's been since you've used that kind of terminology, where that was a consistent threat to the United States, was radical Islamists who were being radicalized by groups like ISIS, by groups like al-Qaeda. And a new threat now.
He wouldn't have said it unless the evidence was so abundant that it was unavoidable, because that is not an admission that he wanted to make. Here's the concern that I hope is apparent on Capitol Hill today. That should have been readily known to them before this, Jay. I mean, ISIS has been looking for a safe haven from which to operate for the last how many decades now? Of course, this was going to be an obvious place for them to reemerge if we have a withdrawal that is this disorderly.
The way that the administration talked about this in the lead up to the withdrawal, you would have imagined that ISIS was no major threat there at all, no major threat from al-Qaeda either, that yes, there were going to be some bumps along the road with the Taliban, but that those outside players who are now the reason why the airport in Kabul is more dangerous is because of the resurrection. Think about this. Donald Trump and his administration eradicated ISIS. They are back now operating in Afghanistan, which will become a safe haven for them to operate if U.S. troops do withdraw, which is exactly what happened and how 9/11 was planned.
If Afghanistan becomes a safe haven for the Taliban and for ISIS and al-Qaeda, which is exactly what's going to happen, they will be able to plan future attacks. And that's what we wanted to guard against. That's why we wanted to utilize technology. The Trump administration wanted to utilize technology to push back, maybe bombing from the air or other forms, but we were watching them, and there were conditions on the Taliban that were always going to be met.
You just left the Taliban and ISIS and al-Qaeda with sophisticated weaponry so that they can first terrorize Afghans and any Americans still in Afghanistan and potentially start another conflict with our U.S. troops, the brave men and women who serve our country, because there's an absence at the Department of Defense.
That's for sure.
I mean, Lloyd Austin, give me a break. He loves doing, congressional hearings on diversity in the military and critical race theory in the military and vaccinations in the military. What he doesn't like doing press conferences on is Afghanistan and the additional 4,300 troops he just sent to be in harm's way against al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the Taliban. Do we need to see another beheading video of an American to realize the threat that these guys pose?